What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 9 of the Winners on Podcast, presented by iKon Boats, and of course, your host, Braden Cox. Today, we're joined by the Bassmaster College Series champions from Saginaw Bay up in Michigan, Branden Burrill and Jack Simpson from Western Michigan University. So, I really appreciate you guys joining here, and congratulations on the win.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. It should be a fun one talking about your guys' tournament there. I fished it myself, so I'm excited to hear about how you guys ended up winning. And it was a little bit of a different tournament with that weather, getting us stuck in the river the first day, and then getting sent out there the second day when it's still not ideal conditions at all to fish for smallmouth. But I'm excited to dive into it. So, like I said, congratulations on the win, and tell me a little bit how it feels to get a win on such a big stage under your guys' belt.
You can go first, Brandon.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's still surreal. Just the emotions from the tournament. I mean, they're unmatched. It's probably, we talked about afterwards, we might never feel something like that again. I mean, hopefully we do, obviously, but wow, it was just surreal, and to have everyone back home watching and to be able to do that for us and the school and the team, it meant a lot to us. So I mean, yeah, we're excited to see what the future holds, but yeah, we're definitely going to remember that moment for a long time.
I think one of the big things that kind of stood out, even now, is the amount of people that saw it. Honestly, to say it quite frankly, like people who don't fish, people who aren't really in the industry, people I haven't talked to in a while, reaching out like, "Hey man, I saw this article or I saw this post." I was like, "Wow, like this." A lot of people were talking about that. Brandon and I have both found some success in some of the smaller and our local college leagues that we've got around here, and things like that. But for a win like this on such a big stage, it was the first thing that I've ever had anything like that. And yeah, it was the people that were impacted and that let us know, like, even just like, hey, we saw this, was like, wow, like I haven't talked to you in 5 years.
Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, I believe it. And for it to be in your guys' home state, and there's so many guys that strive to get a win, and obviously go into the season hoping to qualify for the national championship and hope for a win. But that field's so stout, and there's so many good guys that fish that to get a win had to feel super good. But before we dive too deep into your guys' tournament, just for anyone that doesn't know who you guys are, if you could give me an introduction, your name, grade. You guys both are from Western Michigan University. Maybe like your home lake, and then I always like to ask, if you guys could only fish with one technique for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Yeah,
right.
So
you can go.
I'll start. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Michigan. My name's Jack Simpson, obviously, but I was born on the south side of the state, southeast Michigan, more specifically, in western Michigan. For anybody that doesn't know, you're right about over here on this side of the state. And I was born over here by Lake St. Clair, so kind of over in the Saginaw Bay, St. Clair area. I didn't actually have a lot of experience fishing in the past on Saginaw Bay. I'm sure we'll get into that though. But just about me, I guess I consider my home lake for like big, well-known bodies of water, probably Lake St. Clair. More specifically, like Woodland Lake is my inland lake that I live on. And then over here on the west side of the state, there's a lot of really good fisheries over here. But I'm wrapping up my last year of college. Brandon is too, so this was like our last year fishing the college stuff, and it was like kind of the last year to make it happen. Neither of us have ever qualified for a Bassmaster Natty, so I don't think either of us. I mean, we were really hoping to, and this was our chance to swing for it. But it was like this is our only chance. It's the only bass event we're fishing this year. So to be able to have it all come together like that, to win it and have it be like right at the end and kind of the ending note of our college careers was really, really cool.
Yeah, to go off that, it definitely was really cool. But yeah, so my name is Branden Burrill. I was born in Kalamazoo, which is the home of Western Michigan. So I've lived here my whole life. I have very limited experience on Saginaw Bay. Me and him have been there a couple times for in-state stuff, as well as the Bassmaster event a couple years ago. But I would say for my home lake, I would probably have to say St. Clair too, just for what's known. I don't have that much experience out there either. I'm not honestly known as a smallmouth guy. I like catching largemouth. So Yeah, I think that kind of sums where we've been.
Oh, we got to answer his question. One technique for the rest of your life.
Oh, that's easy. Mine is definitely a frog. I like catching my frog in the slop.
I'd throw a jig.
There you go. Both
I don't
those
care
are
if it's
tough to
flipping a
beat.
jig, skipping a jig, bladed jig. I'd throw a jig. That's all I'd do
Some
forever.
sort of jig. There you go. Yeah, both those are hard to beat. Those are both fun techniques and something I'm sure you guys gets to do quite a bit up in Michigan. But
Quite a bit.
I had two questions for you. So you guys are both seniors. What'd you guys major in at Western Michigan?
I'm aviation. I'm doing a dual major program that we've got here. But yeah, I'm going to be a pilot.
Yep, and I'm sales and business marketing.
That's cool. I was just curious since you guys are both seniors. But one thing you guys both mentioned was fishing. You guys have fished a lot of like smaller college local trails. Is one of those college bass tour that you guys have fished while you guys were in college?
CBTs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Western Michigan guys fish those, and I feel like Western Michigan always wins.
Oh,
I feel like
at least for the
everyone I
last
see.
5 years, that's for sure. This year we're slacking a little bit, but yeah, we've had a pretty impressive showing for the Michigan circuit the last 5 or 6 years, and I think Western's won AOY like 4 of the last 5 years, and we've won School of the Year the last 5 years, and it's been we've done really good up here.
That's pretty cool. So what drove your guys' decision to only fish the one Bassmaster tournament? Was it just the travel and how far they were? Was it school related, or just what was the driving factor to make you only fish that one?
So part of it, it kind of has to do with just the culture of the team a little bit, and so our team and just how it's kind of always been, and so how it's been going forward is we're like really focused heavily on like our Michigan leagues and stuff, and so part of the transition is we've gotten to be a bigger team, start to get a little bit of recognition, and started to find some success, on smaller scales, and then some of the national stuff has been transitioning organizationally and funding wise to getting more guys to commit to going nationally. And so a short answer for why do more people on our team not fish nationally is that they're not equipped to do it. We have a lot of guys that like fishing, our 5 tournaments in Michigan. They might not have as big a rigs they want to go take across the country and things like that. People might not be able to financially afford it. And a lot of those reasons apply to us as well, and balancing it with school and everything else has been what's played into it a little bit. But the guys that have been really diehard and dedicated have been getting more and more into the national field. And so even fishing 2 or 3 or 4 national events between MLF and Bass is like, that's a lot of national fishing for as far as our team goes.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that too. I mean, I think it's one thing too for Bassmaster. I mean, we're qualifying. I mean, at least the last 3 years, we've qualified at least 3 or 4 teams for the MLF Natty. Me and Jack have both qualified. I'm qualified for next year, but Bassmaster is something that we've never really had a lot of, we've never really sent a lot of people to, and I don't know if it's just been the schedule or what, but, with our limited, like you said, we don't focus as much on the Bassmaster events, so the limited amount of exposure we get in those events, we haven't really been able to capitalize on, so it was cool to obviously be able to do that, and we hope that moving forward the team can, start sending more people to the Bassmaster events because, it does a lot more for you. I mean, the CBTs are awesome. We're really, fortunate to have that, but I mean, that definitely explains why we haven't really been able to fish them as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. What tournaments you ended up qualifying for the MLF Natty for this year?
I qualified in Florida at the Harris Chain.
I didn't fish, or I fished one MLF tournament this year and I didn't qualify, so I'm not, but he is. I qualified on Lake St. Clair in the past for the MLF Natty.
Got it. That's cool. So you guys travel a lot more, like you said, for MLF than Bass. Just to touch on your team a little bit more, are you guys all self-funded, or is that something that the school helps you with, or how does that work for your guys' team?
Yeah, I mean, we're all self-funded. The school doesn't give us any money. We have a lot of really good sponsors that obviously drive us through the season. We do some fundraising activities, stuff like that. That really kind of propels us to we're at a really good financial point right now, where in the past, it's been a lot less. So we're really fortunate. And honestly, some of the reason we went to Sag Bay was because we weren't going to really pay much out of pocket. And it was like, this is our last chance. Whereas before, we might have had to pay for half or 3/4 of the trip out of pocket, and that just isn't financially doable for a lot of us. So, the minimum, like, this is my 4th year fishing, and I think I've only fished maybe 7 natty events. And, MLF used to have a Northern Conference, so, I fished a couple up here. So we haven't really traveled as much because the finance part of things. But, yeah, right now we're in such a good financial spot that we have sent a lot of teams to national events this year, and that's been a really good, really helpful for us.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear that you guys are in that spot. And like you said, it's impressive to be able to do that as a college team without any help from the school. There's those couple of teams like Montevallo and the Auburns and all them where you see, 25 teams just from there at one event. You're like, okay, this is getting out of hand. But that's cool you guys are able to do that. One thing before we kind of jump into the whole main event of the evening, but Jack, I had a question. You said like you're more inland home lake. Are there a lot of lakes in Michigan that are actually really good fisheries that that they're small, so like there's not a lot of light shed on them?
What was it you said? Are there a lot of lakes that what?
Like inland lakes within Michigan that are really good lakes that just don't have a lot of light shed
Everywhere.
on them?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, if you fly over the state, it's just there. There are lakes everywhere, and I've never been to Minnesota, but I hear it's pretty similar like that, or even more so there. But there are inland lakes everywhere, lakes that you've never heard the name of before. From small inland lakes to great big lakes in northern Michigan. The big legendary smallmouth fisheries that Michigan has. But yeah, there's thousands and thousands of lakes that don't get a lot of attention that have big fish in them, and so that's something really cool. Growing up and living in Michigan is just getting hop around and find new lakes and fish lakes that might have never had a bass boat on them before.
Super underrated fishery, we'll tell you that. They all are.
Right. I just see like I follow a couple people on Instagram that like I don't really know who they are, but I just follow them because they're fishing or whatever, and they're anywhere from high school to college kids or whatever, and they're always posting 20-something pounds of largemouth today, whatever, and like just some random lake, and I'm like,
it's crazy.
That looks like a blast.
Even in the summertime, it's still like, I mean, we're okay with all the southern guys staying down south though. That's for sure. We don't.
Yeah, right. We don't need that pressure up here.
No, they'll go catch them better than us, and I don't know. That wouldn't go well.
Yeah, wouldn't fly around here, but that's funny. Are you guys excited to go to Hartwell?
Yeah. I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited, actually.
Have you ever been there before, or to any herring fishery for that matter?
No.
Yeah,
Nope.
It's something way different. It's something to look forward to. It'll be fun. But so, yeah, jumping into your win at Saginaw Bay. Before we get into the actual tournament, let's talk about what your like pre-practice, like before you even showed up to the lake. I know you guys both already said you didn't have much experience on Saginaw Bay before this tournament. So what'd you guys do before you even practiced? What'd you kind of think going into the tournament? Like, what'd you think was going to win? What do you think you needed to catch weight-wise? Things like that. And how'd you prepare to give yourselves the best shot at during your last college tournament to not only make the natty, but also to get the win?
Yeah, I'd like to start that one. I mean, so we came directly from another tournament on another inland Michigan lake, Houghton Lake, which is the biggest one in Michigan, not connected to Great Lakes. So we missed a day of practice from that. But obviously we had a lot of time to talk about it on the drive over and everything. And we obviously have known about Sag Bay, and we know what it's going to take. So we started way up north and fished a whole day of practice in, the Tawas area. And it just wasn't happening. We probably had the trolling motor on 10, and we covered like miles and miles and miles of water. And it just, we just didn't see what we needed to see. We were all in on smallmouth. We weren't gonna catch a largemouth all of practice. If we caught a largemouth, then we were just gonna go home. And so on the second day of practice, we kind of expanded on, the limited amounts that we had found, and that propelled us, to what we had found, obviously, in the tournament, which we'll talk about that in a second. But, we thought it was going to take a lot to win, based on what we had heard and based on what we had found. I mean, I think Jack would agree. I was fully prepared to see 23 to 23.5 pounds a day win that tournament, just based on what we had and what I had heard other people were finding and stuff. And so, I mean, as the practice progressed, it was really good. I mean, we just found new fish every day, and it seemed like we were doing the right things, and we had limited people around us. So I guess like our preconceived notions were, if we're able to go to the lake, we would have a good chance at qualifying was our goal. Obviously that'll change, stay in the river, which we'll talk about, but yeah. So like our preconceived notion, like we knew it was gonna take smallmouth. We started way up north and kind of worked in that area, and kind of led us to what we found for the tournament.
And to throw this out there, so I guess all that to say, to answer your question in short, like one of the biggest preconceived notion or pre-practice conversation or talk was that's what we're going to do. We're going to go find the smallmouth. But that wasn't the first time that either of us have had that conversation, because we both fished Saginaw Bay individually in the past Bassmasters, each with different partners, and neither of us had done good or had success finding smallmouth. And I don't remember if you had looked much for smallmouth, Brandon, when you were there, but I know I did. I didn't give it very hard of a try. I will say I think I was pretty quick to kind of go where I thought they were going to be, and I'm talking about in years past right now, but I thought I was quick to go where I thought they were going to be, find them not there, and then, all right, I'm going to go look for largemouth, and kind of decide that I was going to go do it about that way. And so I think having those past experiences in that way is what kind of led us both to be like, if it takes 4 days to find 5 fish, then that's what we're going to have to do, because there's not another way to really punch your ticket to qualifying except doing that. And having attempted to do that and failed it a couple times was like, all right, we really got to take what we've learned in the past and put our heads down and grind to try and actually figure this out this time, because as we both learned before, it's not easy. And it's not like, oh, you go out to the bay and you go out to the Charities or you go out to Tawas or whatever it is, and it's smallmouth paradise, they're everywhere, there. That's kind of the preconceived notion that a lot of people have, and that I think I probably had at one point in time, and that's not the case at all. They are few and far between out there. So having had those experiences in the past and kind of preparing our mindsets for the grind that it was going to be, I think certainly helped.
Yeah, I fully understand that whole part with them being few and far between. I was a freshman the second year they went, so 2 seasons ago now? Yeah, and I did the same thing as you. What did I do? I ran out to Charity, I think, for a little bit and ended up not finding them, so ended up largemouth fishing. And like you said, I think a lot of people just assume, since it's Saginaw Bay and connected to the Great Lakes, that it is just this awesome smallmouth fishery. And there's plenty of big smallmouth in there, but like you said, they're not easy to find. So during your practice, did you guys watch, did you pay attention to the weather forecast and that sort of thing? Because I know the wind is forecasted the whole time to be blowing all the way to the east side the whole time. And my first day of practice, I practiced on the east side, and then I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it over here. Who knows? So did you guys pay attention to that? Did you put that into play? Because I guess the first day of practice, I practiced on the east side, and there were so many boats over there. And my first thought was like, I found some fish over here, but at the same time, I don't know how in the world I'm going to fish for these. So did that play into your game plan of practice at all?
Yeah, I'll start us off on that. We thought the same thing you did, and both of us saw there was no surprise that it was a wind blowing onto the east bank. Like, that was forecasted all week. It was forecasted to blow hard, and it did exactly what it was said. And so yeah, we kind of initially weren't going to do that either. We started off in Tawas. We spent a day and a half up there, really looking hard. Did not have a lot of success. Found a few of them, nothing really of good quality. Decided we were going to go out to Charities, spend some time out at the Charities. And after doing all that, it was like, all right, we haven't had, and people did find them out there at the Charities, but it's not like for people that haven't been to Saginaw Bay, saying the Charities is not like a couple little islands. Like, it is like miles and miles and miles of rock and water to look for. But we didn't really have a lot of success personally out there, and so it was kind of going over to the East Bank was kind of our last resort. It was like, all right, we've said we're going to make the commitment to finding smallmouth, and we haven't found them in these areas. Like, we can't rule that out. We're going to have to go check it. And so by the time we got over there actually weren't a lot of boats over there, and I don't know if people had started over there and kind of as the weather and the wind got closer, thought that might be more reliable. And we were hoping, as much as the next guy, that we didn't find him over there. We found him somewhere else for the same reason. But once we started finding them and kind of figured out where they were at, it was like, oh geez, we're gonna have to come here now.
Right. Did you expect the fish to be on beds like they were in the tournament, or were the ones you found on beds?
Yeah,
We can talk about
yeah,
that,
they were on beds. Like like he said, we started in the charities and we made the run across in practice when it was calm too, and that's kind of what was surprising why there was nobody over there. So our first real good day of practice was like probably the best bed fishing day I've experienced. I think we both agreed like it was one of the best bed fishing days we had experienced like in our lives. And we pulled into a certain area. It was flat calm. There was no wind. The sun was what? That was Tuesday. Yeah, it was no. This would have been Monday.
Yeah.
It was Monday. Yeah, so on Monday we went into this area and it was flat calm. The sun was beating down on us, and we pulled in and we sat down, and I got up there and I looked up, and 100 feet away I see a big dark circle, and I'm like, okay. So we go over there and there's a 4-pounder sitting in it, and we're like, okay, this is cool. And I mean we put the hurting on them. I mean we probably caught, I don't know, 22 pounds that day on our first area, and just looked, we made some lines and marked a bunch of fish and caught some good ones, and we were like, all right, this is awesome. And they were all on beds, all super easy to find. Like they weren't hard to see in practice, and there was just nobody around us. I mean, there were boats in the same general area, but we didn't have to really share our spot with anybody in practice, and that was obviously a huge key to success. But yeah, to answer the question, every fish we caught was on a bed in practice.
That's what I figured. But so sitting there going into day one of the tournament, before we got the text saying that we were stuck in the river, did you guys think you had a shot at winning, or did you think that it was going to take? I know you already said you thought it was going to take a lot more, which that got a big wrench thrown in it from the river. But did you guys think you had a shot at it?
I'd like to talk about this one because we were kind of expecting a weather delay, and I remember we got in the truck and we were with 2 of our other teammates. They were fishing together, and we called them because they were on some really good fish as well. And we called them. We're like, oh, the bay's closed. I have personally never caught a bass in the river until that day. I had never fished it. I had never really wanted to. And I just told them, I love catching largemouth up shallow, and I was like, we're just going to mess around and win this thing then, I guess, if we have to do it. And, obviously it worked out, but I was honestly excited when it went to the river. I was like, it kind of gives us, now we're all on the same playing field. Who's the better angler up shallow? And then, we'll get to go do the dirty work tomorrow, what we worked for. So it was kind of a cool curveball personally.
I agree with that. Were you saying, did we think, before they said the bay was closed, did we think that we had a chance at winning off the smallmouth 2 days in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I thought we were going to win. I think that both of us were in agreement. We knew with what the wind was forecasting that it was going to be really, really rough to get out there. It was going to be a really rough run. It's not going to be easy fishing. I mean, it's hard to catch bedding fish when it is 4-foot rollers, 5-foot rollers. That's really difficult. And I think we thought that we had the fish out there on beds where if things went right and we could get them to bite, that we were probably going to be in a top 10 position. And I've never gone into an event that big with that type of confidence. So that was a really good feeling to have. Just like after the last day of practice wrapped up and it was like, get off the water, how do you think your practice went? How do you think the tournament's going to go? I think that kind of sums up what we were both thinking.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good feeling going into it. But then, like I said, and like you guys obviously know, that a tournament morning text day one, the bay's closed, small craft advisory. So now everyone's stuck in the river. Branden, like you already kind of touched on. So I know, Jack, have you ever fished in the river? I know Branden just said he hadn't. So
very limited. I mean, it had been a couple of years, and I might have done a very, very limited amount of messing around in the river, but nothing serious.
Got it. So nothing to give you guys an advantage. So then, after day one, you guys had, 16 pounds in the river?
Yeah.
So to come out on top on day one, that had to feel pretty dang good. I mean, the weights were stupid tight.
And I didn't think there was a chance that somebody wasn't going to crack 19 or 20 pounds in the river.
Yeah.
That was our entire goal on day one was like, our goal is 15 pounds. We think we can survive with 15 pounds. That'd be a good bag, put us in a respectable position to go get them tomorrow. Like, that's what we're going to do.
And I mean,
and we had like 14, 15 and caught a really good call close to the end. And we were like, all right, this is sweet. 16 pounds, like going back, we're going to be sitting in a pretty good position. But I mean, in the past, people have at least claimed to have caught 19, 20-pound bags in the river. Some of the big largemouth bags people have said come out of the river. So just based off that, I thought they were going to get caught better in the river.
yeah, I think that we definitely, like, even on the run back, like on our scale, we had 15 something or whatever, and we were like, oh, we did some really good damage control tomorrow. Like, if we're able to go, like, we're gonna, we're in a good position. Like 15 pounds, is definitely gonna be in the top 10. And yeah, I mean, I just think the pressure had something to do with it. Why the bags, weren't
100%.
weren't as big. I mean, that the river can produce them. There's big fish in there. But yeah, I mean, obviously that being like a huge curveball, and like you said, putting everybody on like a level playing field, and honestly, we were almost kind of excited because we were boat 177. I mean, we were the last flight, like we had really nothing to lose. We were, if we were going for betting fish and other people had found them, we were, obviously our confidence would be like, well, other guys are going to get there first, and we're kind of getting to get the last. So at least the river, it was like, well, we'll just pull in behind somebody and see who can catch them better, and that's what we did.
We were happy, actually, given the boat number, because we were like, all right, level playing field, and now tomorrow, we're boat 28. Like, tomorrow we're going to go out early when it matters. So yeah, after our boat number, too, we were like, yeah, this might not be the worst thing. It might all work out.
Yeah.
Right. So walk me through that first day of the tournament. Obviously, you guys were leading after day one in the river. So just kind of from takeoff, being in that last flight, I mean, I don't know where we were. We were middle of the pack somewhere in the early hundreds. I think we were about like 110 or something. But, I mean, there were boats just littered in the river. So kind of walk me through. You guys take off, and then from the beginning of the day until weigh-in, in as much detail as you'd like, how'd you guys end up catching them that day, and how'd your day actually go?
Yeah, so, I mean, we got the text, and Brandon was driving that morning, and I was like, all right, I better get on Google Earth, and I better find something that we're going to go fish. Like, just looking at, like, sloughs and slop and trying to figure it out, and, like, all right, this area looks good, this area looks good. Okay, I'm sitting in the boat while he's driving in the weigh-in line, and I'm trying to, like, look at my phone where I, like, pick spots out and move them over to my graph, and none of that mattered, because when we get down there as boat 170, there is a boat on every cut, corner, piece of shoreline, opening to something, anything. And so we just kept running down, just looking, just like, we're just going to just go until we see something that looks good. And ended up, there was this little tiny, tiny little cut off the river, and we were like, all right, we're gonna go somewhere stupid shallow, and we tried to get through there, and we couldn't get, like, we had the boat bottomed out and couldn't get. I mean, I was like, dude, we're gonna have to push bull to get out of here. And we spent like maybe not a half an hour, but we spent like a sizable chunk of tournament time when you're stressed and don't really know where you're gonna go fish, like trying to get the boat into this little cut, finding out we couldn't get into it, and then trying to get it out, where it was like, all right, now what are we gonna do? And so then we just sat down and we're like, all right, this is where we'll fish. We're gonna fish around this little deal looking here with some reeds and stuff, and just started fishing, just watching boats going everywhere. And Brandon wanted to power fish, and I was like, well, I'm gonna throw a wacky rig. I hate doing it, but there's just so many boats here. Sometimes you just gotta throw the wacky rig. And we were angled up our first limit doing that, and I actually ended up dumping a pretty good one. I don't know if it would have helped given our day, but when we had like 8.5 pounds, I dumped a pretty good one. It was like, okay, that sucks. That really stinks. And we fished this same little stretch where we were catching like 14.5, 15 inchers. We went up and down this spot like 4 times. It was like 100 yards. There was nobody else on this part. There were boats everywhere. And so we're like, well, we're going to fish behind somebody no matter what. We'll just fish behind ourselves, go up and down here, and we know we're catching some fish here. And so that's how we caught our first limit, made our first probably 5 culls, and got up to, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds, somewhere around there. You can get it rolling from here.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to touch on the lost fish that Jack had in the morning. Not that it matters looking back, but at the time, there was we were like really stressed out. Like it's 8:30, 9 o'clock at this point. We have literally 8 pounds on the scale. and he reels into one, and it comes up and jumps, and it was a big one. And there was a southern boat driving by us, and the guy who was in the passenger seat said that did not look like a small one, and then he just kept rolling, and it was like, damn, that like those guys saw it, it was a big one, and we're over here, they probably got 10 pounds, 12 pounds, whatever. So that kind of like put us in the dumps. We were really like, dang, that sucked. Like that fish could have put us at 11 pounds, and we need one more cull to get at 13 and be in the hunt at least. And so from there, we kind of went into a different area, and I mean, there was just boats everywhere in this area, and we started to fish behind a couple of boats. We ended up making like a pretty crucial cull to start. It was like a 2 3/4, whacked it, and we put it in the boat. And we were like, all right, we can roll with this.
Huge confidence.
It was a confidence cull for sure. And then we decided we were going to move to the other side of the lake, and there was a boat that was, I think this boat was one of the boats that was actually in the top 5 for the total tournament, and they were in this area, and we pulled in behind him, and we watched him catch a couple fish, and we were like, oh, like, and they just kept moving. It was really weird. They weren't big ones. I mean, they were 12 to 14-inch fish, and they kept moving down the bank. And I told Jack, I was like, the only way we're gonna separate ourselves from everybody is doing what I like to do, and that's getting like absolutely dirt shallow. Like, let's get the boat stuck. That's how you catch a bass. And we went into that same area and ended up, catching a couple and losing a couple, and we got that boat stuck. So, like, we started to go in this area, and there was actually a point where the wind was ripping. It was probably blowing 10 to 15 straight at our side, and we had no poles down. We had the trolling motor out of the water, and the boat was not moving. And we pretty much caught all our weight when the boat wasn't moving, when the boat was bottomed out.
Beached.
What was that?
I said beached.
Yeah, I mean,
when it was completely
the boat
beached.
was completely beached, and there were boats everywhere around us. I mean, there was, we like we said in the interview, there was 10 to 15 boats within sight at all times, but everyone was watching us up there like, man, how did they get up there, and what are they doing up there? And we were just bombing a frog or a blade jig as far as we could throw it and catch them and reeling them in, and it was like it was just fun. I mean, we just had so much fun, and I think the wind helped that by obviously, but the pressure was huge, and the only way you were gonna separate yourselves was go do something different, and that's what we did, really.
Oh, let me see if I can kind of paint the picture a little bit. So we're in this area. It was like a slough, like a real shallow backwater area, and it's like a rotating carousel of boats moving up and down this bank. Everybody's fishing behind everybody. You got a boat 50 yards behind you, 50, 100 yards in front of you. Everybody's flipping it or throwing something moving, trying to separate themselves, and we're moving along. And when Branden said that the one boat we saw catch a couple, we're moving along. The boats are in about the center area of this slough. Maybe 3-4 feet of water is as deep as the boats were in. And then there was this edge that comes up to like a foot where there's all these pad stems and stuff. And so the boat we saw catch a couple was right on the edge, just like everybody else was rotating through. And so when we got about, and we watched them catch a couple and just keep moving. And so we just kept moving behind them. And then we caught a couple right about where they had. And Branden talked about wanting to go up shallow, and way up this flat, because everything up there is dirt shallow, up this 1 foot flat. There was some really, really good looking grass. It didn't look like anything else in the area that was getting fish because it was up so shallow, people weren't getting their boats up to it. Really, really good pads, really good stems, really good looking stuff. And so that's when Branden talked about wanting to get the boat as shallow as we could go. And we had the wind blowing at our backs. And once he started saying that and he was talking about it, I was kind of like, all right, I'm taking this as a challenge. Like, let's see how far back we can get in. So we had the wind blowing at my back. And I had the trolling motor on like 9. And I was putting both my hands on the head of the Ultrex to keep just the blade in the water. And the boat was just dragging the bottom. And the wind was blowing at my back. So I was like, no, I don't know if we're going to be able to get out without like push-pull.
And
the wind's helping up onto this shallow.
And I was
area.
back there rocking the boat too, so we're doing everything we could to get back in this area. And it wasn't even like it was a sneaky little cut that no one saw us. Like, we were in the middle of this slough. I mean, we were right in the middle of it.
It was just the edge that people were moving along, and we put the boat 50, 60 yards farther back than where people were really fishing. And so it was kind of just keying in on like a couple bites, and there's some good looking stuff. There's fish in the area. How can we get back farther to where people are not, where the fish haven't seen 100 bladed jigs yet?
That's crazy.
That's what ended up working.
That's pretty crazy, yeah. And so you said you guys ended up catching them on bladed jigs and a frog way up on that flat?
Yeah, like up there.
Did you guys stay south? Like when you came out of the boat ramps, did you guys stay south, or did
Yeah,
you
we
end
went
up turning
south.
back around and come back up
We
north?
stayed south the whole day.
Yeah, I figured there were boats everywhere. I stayed up north, and I was just curious how many boats actually went south. Because when we went for takeoff, we were only like the second boat to go north. I mean, we were same spot. I never fished the river really for anything, so I was like, well, and my co-anchor was like, which way we're going? I'm like, I don't know, this way. but
Literally.
but yeah, that's crazy to be able to come out with 16 pounds and then come out with the lead, knowing that hopefully we're going to get out in the bay for the next day. So did you think that we were going to be able to go for the second day, or were you worried about getting stuck in the river again?
And we were so back and forth
Yeah.
on it. Like, we were updating they're like, did it change? Well, no, of course it didn't change. Like, the Weather Channel doesn't change every 30 minutes. Like, it's been saying it's going to blow 20 out of the northwest for a week, and it still says that it's going to blow 20 out of the northwest. But yeah, us and our other team had been out there fishing for smallmouth too. We're like, they were hoping they'd be able to go out. We were going back and forth, like, do you think we're going to go? And there was no good consensus on it.
So when you found out that, got a text day 2 saying, hey, the bay's open, did you guys have any doubt in your mind, like knowing how bad it was going to blow, or was it instantly like, we're going smallmouth fishing?
No, we knew it was going to be really bad, but we knew
There could have been 10 footers, and I don't
Yeah.
think we would have stayed in the river. I mean, and it was really bad. Don't worry. It was not pleasant out there at all.
Yeah, because we made the run all the way up to Tawas. I mean, we found some fish up there, not the quality we needed, but yeah, I can't imagine run on that side. So when you come out of the mouth of the river and you have that long idle, and then you come out the mouth of the river and you see it, like how long did it take you? Like how many miles approximately was it to get up to where you were going, and how long did that take you to get up there?
From the mouth of the river, it was like 30 miles-ish, right?
Yeah, did it take us from the...
It took us almost...
It's a 45, 50-minute idle to get to the mouth. Did it then take us probably 2 hours on the bay to get out there?
Yeah, I would say roughly 2 hours. I think we sat down and started fishing at like... Honestly, I can look at my phone and see when I texted the dude, but it was like 8:30 maybe.
Oh, the camper
takeoff
boat.
was 5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had texted him and I was like, dude, don't come out here. This is terrible. And yeah, it was probably like 8:30 before we even like sat down to start fishing because it was so bad.
And the camera boat did end up coming out there with you guys, didn't he?
They were...
Well, he was already out
We're
there.
already in
Yeah.
the water. We're already out there.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Just
that's-
crazy, dude. I would never do that.
How big were the waves on that side? Because I didn't really, I mean, one of our teams went to the east bank but was fishing all the way down towards the mouth of the river, so he didn't actually make that run up. So how big do you think those waves actually were on that east bank?
6 footers.
Yeah, dude, they were so bad that like when we sat down, like we were having a tough time peeing. Like we were like getting thrown around like we were in a washing machine. I mean, like I was latched onto the power poles and it was just like, holy cow.
And so we didn't know it at the time. The ride out there was so much better than the ride back. We didn't even know what we were in for.
No. The ride out there was terrible. But when we sat down, it was like, holy cow. Like we just made this, 2-hour run and now we got to catch them, right? So
Just one of those that you're both completely rain suited up and you're still dripping wet, spearing them. And I mean, we've both lived and fished the Great Lakes our entire lives. And like people talk about wave size and I was out there in 7 footers and 8 footers and blah blah blah. They were 6 footers and they were real 6 footers. They were, and there was a lot of them. That's what
I believe that wholeheartedly, because the west side, running up the west side, was still not pleasant, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I don't know how in the world anybody's going to make it back, run to the east side, and I only know a couple guys that actually did make the run up there, and all of their boats were pretty much mangled. Like, did you guys make it back in one piece?
I mean, I ripped both the side. My Ultrex is still messed up, but I ripped both like the plastic side plates off. I didn't even know when I ripped them off. On the way out there, I only speared 2 waves. Like there were a handful where I kind of clipped the top of them enough to spray us, but there were like 2 good like noses going down. We're taking a wall over bad, and for how far we went, I was like, that's not that bad. And we were running not with them, but kind of at a diagonal with them, with how we were going running up, because it was kind of coming out of the north, kind of northwest, and we were kind of running trying to think about it, but we were kind of running with them at a diagonal, not straight with them, so you could kind of pick them apart a little bit. It wasn't as bad as the way back, because the way back now, not only had it been blowing that hard, but now it's been blowing that hard for 5-6 hours, and the wind had been now like a sustained 20, 22, 23 miles an hour, and everything had gotten a chance to stack up a lot more, coupled with the fact that now we're going into them, and so the way back was that much worse and didn't really know what we were in for. But the ride out there, your spirits are high. It's like, we're going to get these fish. We know they're out there. It's like in your head, it's like, yeah, if we can make it to these fish, they're going to bite. It's going to be great. And then you get out there and your spawning flat has 4 and 5 footers on it. And we sat down and realized really, really quickly that spot lock or anything like that just wasn't going to work, because you just take them over so fast. So it was like, decide which bed you're going to fish, and it's super important, your initial setup. Like, I would come around and it was so hard trying to position the boat with the big motor, because if you came up behind the bed at all and had to put yourself where you had to like idle at it, you would just take them over the front. And so like that was like almost the hardest part of setting up on a bed, was like the idle up to it before you shut off the big motor and you get up to fish, of just how to position the boat. So you kind of had to come up alongside it so that you wouldn't take them over the front, and then use the trolling motor the best you could to position once the wind blew you around the back. But it was tough. When we had set down and we're trying to position ourselves with the trolling motor, we took 2 really big waves over the front where we filled the cockpit up pretty good. And it was that was when Branden and I kind of looked at each other. We're like, oh, this isn't fun and games anymore. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of gallons of water in the boat right now.
Yeah, I told him I couldn't do it. I was trying to fish, and I was like, dude, I can't do this. Like, there's 6 footers right here. I can't even stand up straight, and then I'm trying to cast at a bed I can't see, and the trolling motor's not staying in the water. How are we gonna catch bass here? And the first like 30 minutes were probably probably some of the worst times of my life, actually. Like, it was so discouraging.
I'm sitting on all fours using my hands to steer the trolling motor because I couldn't balance with Branden next to me. Branden's got his feet spread way out on the front deck, just trying to balance, not steer the trolling motor. All he's trying to do is cast at a dot. Perspective mode live scope wasn't staying in the water, so you couldn't see the fish that way. There was way too much chop to have any hope of seeing it with your eyes. You're just casting it where you thought the dot was on the GPS mark, and I'm just doing the best I can. Just every time the boat bow comes down, I'm on all fours, just taking a wave into the face, trying to just keep us close enough where Branden can make like a couple casts at it. And that's like how we did it. Like, that was all we could do.
Yeah.
That's insane. I was going to ask like if you could use live scope, but yeah, I mean, I didn't think your trolling motor was going to be so far out of the water at that point. And I mean, so that's insane. I mean, that's like the worst case scenario. Bed fishing and waves that bad, where I mean, you can't even, like you said, can't even stand up. And I mean, were those fish hard to get to bite, or like, I mean, because you don't even know if you really hit the bed. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because like we had so many fish marked. I mean, we probably had, I don't even know the number, we didn't count them, but hundreds of beds, and quite a few big ones, and I don't know, 15 fish over 3 3/4, and just so many quality fish. So we knew that we had enough fish to run, but it's like you said, how do you know? Number one, how do you know that they're there? Number two, how do you know if you're hitting the bed? Number three, what if they're not there? And then you sit there for 30 minutes and make 100 casts, and you didn't, he's either not there, or you're not hitting the bed. It was like, what do? You just don't know. So we pulled up on our first 2 big ones, a 4 3/4 and a 4 1/2, and never saw them. Never got them to bite. I mean, we still don't know to this day. We have no idea if they were there, if they left, if we didn't make a good cast, I don't know. I mean, the water was so dirty.
Even hitting the bed.
Yeah, we had no idea. And then we pulled up to a 440, and like third cast, he bit. And I'm like, Jack, I got bit. Like 100%, that was a bite. That's the dot. Like, let me cast back in there. I cast back in there and hook up. And we were like, what?
I said, you're like, I got bit, and I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah, because it was so discouraging. He's like, there's no way he actually got bit. Like, what are the odds, And I get bit, and I set the hook, and I'm like, I got him. And I'm fighting him like, dude, it's the 440. Like, we just, and we get him to the boat, and we get him in the net, and the camera boat was already there. And that's the picture from Bassmaster where I'm like fist bumping, and he's netting it. That's that first fish, and we're like, I remember we put it in the box, we're like, it was probably the coolest moment of my life. I was just like, holy cow, we're 4 fish away now from winning this thing. Like, we catch our next 4 biggest fish, I really think we have a chance. And from there we got hot. Like, we went from that bed to a 4 1/4, and I caught it like third cast. And then we went to a high 3, caught it right away. And then went to another high 3 and caught it right away. And we went, in all 4 of them, all 4 of the smallmouth we caught, the camera boat was there. They got it on video. They got on, all the pictures and stuff. And that was like the coolest thing ever. But it was like our minds went from like, there's literally no way that we're going to win this thing or even bring in 5 fish, let alone get back alive, to like, dude, we got to catch 1 more bass and we're going to wrap this thing up. And I'll let Jack kind of finish that
first fish, that first smallmouth out there was the biggest morale booster. That was a turning point fish for the tournament because, like he was saying, we'd gone to our first 2 biggest, couldn't get him a bite, getting beat to death. I'm stressed because ripping apart my boat and taking all the water over, and we're both worked up, and having a few of them that we couldn't get bite, and realizing how difficult it's going to be to fish for them, to catching that one and seeing like a 440, that's almost a 4.5 pounder, like in your hand, is like, that was like, we can catch them like this. Like, this is possible. It's going to be really hard, but like that's like the fish that showed us that we could actually do it despite the waves and the conditions, where it kind of changes your mindset from like, how are we going to do this, to like, no, it's possible, we just did it, now we got to do it 5 more times. So it was really a big turning point for us mentally, not just the fact of getting the big fish in the boat. It was kind of giving you and reaffirming that grit and the grind to this is possible, we can do it now.
Right. So 2 questions. First of all, what baits were you guys throwing to catch those smallmouth? Because you had to be throwing something heavy. That's crazy to do that, catch any of them like that in the first place. So what were your guys' key baits there? We were just a normal drop shot Ned rig type thing. You guys, I think you said in an article that you mixed in like that Beast Coast open water sniper jig. So just talk to me a little bit about your baits that you ended up catching fish on day 2.
I'll start off.
Yeah, we caught them all on a Beast Coast OW sniper jig. And it was a 1/2 ounce jig. You needed something heavier to get down there, just dragging it through there. The smallmouth, absolutely hate that thing. We caught a lot of them in it in practice too. Obviously, going out, our first goal was to catch them on a drop shot. We thought that would be, for hookup ratio and getting them in the boat, that was the way we wanted to catch them, but it was just not possible. Ned rig and drop shot, we're not going to get it done, and we knew that. And even in some of the videos and clips, you can see, we're both throwing bait casters because we're like, we just got to get it out there, and throw something heavy. But yeah, those were, the OW sniper jig was, from Beast Coast. They're one of our bigger sponsors, and they're an awesome company, and they make some awesome stuff, and that really, propelled us through on day 2.
And I thought I'd be able to catch them on a drop shot too, like with a 1/2 ounce weight on it and throw it out there. But it took, like, by the first or second bed, I had this wind knot nest in my spinning reel. Like, I didn't even know how it got there. If like 10 feet of line got blown behind me and I reeled it in, but like, this spinning reel was just a disaster of wind knots, and I was like, all right, put that away, and grabbed another one out that had like a 3/8 ounce on it, and I tried a little bit. I'm like, man, it's tough, and you can't feel anything. The light braid and the line just get blown everywhere, because it wasn't just wavy, like the wind was just taking your line, and so throwing like a heavy bottom bait like that was what really ended up being key, because they don't like that stuff dragging past their bed. Like he said, they hate that.
So did you end up catching them
on everything in practice?
Yeah, I believe it. Did you end up throwing bait casters then for that second day?
We did, but we didn't catch any fish on it. Caught all our fish on an NRX Plus 872. We caught on the same combo. One rod did all the damage. It was tough to get him to bite really anything else. So
that's pretty cool. So in the pictures I saw too, that you guys had 4 smallmouth and 1 largemouth to fill your limit of 19 and change. So what time was it? Because I just heard the story of the first 4 you guys caught. So what time was it when you caught the 4th one? And talk to me about what time that was, and then the time between that and when you decided to leave and make the call, like, hey, we got to get back and we need a 5th fish.
I'd like to start. I'm going to set up like a pretense, and then I'll let Jack finish the story. So, we caught those 4 smallmouth, like, actually pretty quick, believe it or not. Like, even though it took us probably 30 minutes to get one in the boat, we probably caught the next 4 or the next 3 in less than an hour. So it was, yeah, it was probably like 10 o'clock. So our check-in was 2:30. It was 10 o'clock, and we wanted to give ourselves 3 hours to get back. So 11:30 was like our, let's get out of here at 11:30. Give ourselves enough time to get the river. Let's get in for launch. Like we have 4-pound smallmouth. Like we have,
And we said 11. Originally we said 11.
Yeah.
We got 5 bites. We're going back as early as we can to get them watered.
Yeah, because we knew like we had 4 of the right bites. We needed one more, and it was 10 o'clock, and the camera boat decided. I don't know if they were going to find the second place team or what, but they had to leave, so they left, and then it was just a barren wasteland. I mean, dude, we were running 2-pounders trying to get another fish because we knew we are 1 fish away from winning this thing, and we ran every fish from a 350 to a 2.5-pounder. And we just couldn't get even a bite. It made no sense. I mean, the fish that were biting first cast in practice, the easiest fish to catch, we could not catch them. And we probably fished for 15 or 20 beds. And all of a sudden we look down, it's like, holy cow, it's 11 o'clock. Like,
and conditions are worse.
And the conditions are worse. It's 11 o'clock. We have 4 fish in the box. We just made the longest run, the worst run. This is the best chance we'll ever have to win a Bassmaster event. What do we do to catch our biggest fish? Now, going back to when we first sat down on our big one, I know I said we didn't see it, but we actually did. Jack was reeling his, I don't remember what it was to the boat, but he reeled it to the boat in that big one, the 4 3/4, followed it to the boat, and we saw her. Yeah. And I jumped up. I'm like, holy cow, she's still there. So we fished for her, never caught her. So then we made our milk run, caught our 4 fish. It was 11 o'clock, and I looked at him, and I was like, Jack, like, in my opinion, like, that's the fish. Like, we pull up on that fish, and we catch that fish, we run back, we're holding trophies by the end of this, because that'll put us at, 21 pounds, 22 pounds-ish. And it was like, that's the one we need is that fish. And we knew she was there. That was the best thing, is we knew she was there. And so we pull up at like 11:05 and fish for this fish for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Never see her, never get her to bite. And then it's like 11:30, and we're like, I told him, like, we did all we could do, like, if it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be, and there's really not much you can do about it. Like, we worked so hard all practice, we worked hard in the tournament, and then at 11:30 it set in like, wow, we did not get the job done. We only caught 4 fish, and then we made the trek back, and I mean, that was the worst run I'd ever been a part of in my life. Like, we got out past the island, and like you said, they were real 6-footers. Like, these weren't just 6-footers. These were legit 6-footers. And we kind of talked about it while we were, idling, just plowing through them. And I was like, we need to go up shallow, and I mean, we need to run back, and we need to get in there. And that's exactly what Jack did. We went up shallow into 2 feet of water, ran the reed lines all the way to the south shore, and then ran all the way to the river. And I'll let you kind of finish up the story from there.
There was a moment where neither of us thought we were going to get back, because we had the wind blowing out of the northwest, and so it's blowing into that entire side. We were getting big waves where we were fishing at. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that side, but you have that great big Caseville point that comes out. Yep. When you get out past that point, even if you think the wind had just been blowing into you, and the entire force of the wind blowing across the whole bay hits you when you get out past there, it's like, this is much different than I thought it was going to be. And that entire shoreline is rocky. It's got rock reefs, rock bars, sandbars. It's not a good place to run, particularly that first kind of 5 to 10 miles of it from where we were at. And so initially trying to run from where we were directly, as the crow flies directly to the mouth of the bay was what we tried for the first, I don't know if I tried it for 10 minutes and realized it wasn't going to happen. I mean, 6-7 footers, bow is straight up in the air. You're talking halfway on pad, doing 7 miles an hour, just boom, boom, boom. Can't go anywhere. Like, you can't get over them. You couldn't ride the troughs even at that point because just how we were positioned, the troughs, we weren't far enough along down that shoreline where we could really do it yet. And so we toughed it out and had to do that for probably 20 or 30 minutes, and it was brutal just to get up far enough away from shore, away from those rock reefs, where I could then kind of turn into that east bank and kind of run southwest. It would be down along the troughs a little bit till I got pushed too close to those rock shoals where then you'd have to turn outwards and just get beat up by them. And that was like a really, really bad first hour. And that was the point where we never came off pad enough to talk because we were worried about the time. But like, you're going that slow, it's like we're like screaming at each. I'm like, we're not gonna make it. He's like, we're gonna make it, And but that was a really tough mentally point for both of us, and that was kind of we each had a couple times in the tournament. His was kind of right when we first sat down and took those big waves over, fishing for those fish, and thought we weren't going to catch them. And mine was certainly then running back, where I like. It's a really good thing we had partners out there, because it was like you have to have somebody to push you there, because I about lost it. Like, it was stressed out, have 4 fish in the box, think I didn't get the job done, breaking all my stuff. It was rough. And then we got out far enough past where most of the rock reefs are, where you get to that like 20-mile segment from that south corner, where I just full scented, just went all the way up shallow against the reeds, ran 2 feet of water. You're talking 5-6 foot waves. They can't exist in 2 feet of water. They can only be as big as the depth of the water. So you're seeing them crest over, and it looks like when you see on the beach the waves cresting over on the beach, where instead of seeing these great big rollers, you're seeing the cresting whitecaps, and they're 2 foot 2 foot little waves cresting. And so we had spent so much time trying to fight the big waves, where now we were really tight on time doing that. And so it was just hammer down, skipping over the top of them. It was like, well, might break the boat out there trying to run into them, might break the boat up here hitting something shallow. I don't really know what's worse, but at least this way there's a chance those fish get weighed in. So that's what we're doing, was kind of the mindset, and just hammered down and got back. And I still don't know how we made it in time. I think both of us thought it wasn't going to happen for that first hour when we were getting dogged by them.
So what time was it when you got back to the mouth of the river?
It was 1 o'clock.
Down so hard. Yeah, we got back with 1 o'clock. It was a 15-minute idle. We thought we had 30 or 40 minutes to fish.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to give ourselves an hour idle, up the river, and it was like there was definitely a point where we're not making it back. Like, I thought there was no chance. I was like, we're either gonna die out here or just have someone pick us up on the east shore somewhere. And when we did make it back, though, it was like my chest hurt so bad. We were in pain. We sat down in the mouth of the river and we looked, and it was 1:02. And I was like, holy cow, like, that was a pretty good time, really. I mean, we actually got back quicker than we got there, and it was probably 2 times as worse on the way back. So, props to Jack, obviously, for snapping the boat in half to get us back. And when we got to the river, though, we were like, all right, now it's like do or die. Like, we have to catch a fish, or it feels like we just didn't get the job done still. And we, like Jack said, we both kind of had a point in the day where we were like really spun out. Like, when we first sat down, I was like, definitely on the verge of like, holy cow, this is like, what are we doing out here? Like super emotional. And then same thing when Jack was spearing waves with his boat, there was a time where he had to like stop and just pause. And we were like, all right, let's take a breath. Let's get back up on our feet and let's move and let's go catch some bass. And we got to the mouth of the river, and it was one of those like, man, we just did all this work. It was like a century had gone by. Like, we had gone through so many like emotional feelings. Like, everything was so much different. Like, from the start of the day to the end of the day, I cried, laughed, was happy, mad, sad 100 times over throughout the whole day. And it was like, well, that doesn't matter now. We have to catch one fish. And so we idle up along the river, and we're like, oh, we should fish here. We should fish here. We should fish here. We had never fished any of this stuff. And I'm like, well, the boat ramp, might be a good place. Well, there's guys everywhere. And eventually we're like, whatever. There was a bridge right next to takeoff, and we got all the way there, and we're like, there's a boat there, a boat there, a boat there, and then there was a little cut with no boat. And it was calling our name. We were actually going to go to another side, and a boat pulled in right in front of us and went to this side. We're like, oh, well, we're not going over there. So we pull in this cut, and, I mean, it was like we were super emotional. Like, Jack is so frustrated. He's throwing his stuff around. I'm flipping behind him.
Just cast after
he's
cast.
Just chucking and whining, like, not even in a good way. I'm talking like angrily, and I'm just flipping. I'm like, dude, we're gonna catch one. Like, this is awesome. Like, we're about to catch one and win this thing. I kept telling him, like, dude, this is sweet. Like, we're flipping, and like we were still like super, emotional though. And we get to the bridge, and it was, I think, 2:15, and he throws his jig up there and leans into one. He's like, what was it? Yeah, the chatterbait, and leans into one, and he's like, I got one. That's exactly how he said it. He was like, oh, I got one. He was like, I got one. And I like run back there, grab the net, scoop it, set it at the bottom of the boat. It's like 2.5 pound largemouth. We look at each other. We didn't say anything. We hugged. And then we sat down and we were like, that was really cool. And it was just like the craziest moment. I mean, like, wow. I mean, every fishing story you hear probably, especially on this podcast, like all the other kids that have won, I'm sure they have, awesome stories to tell, and it always works out. But like, I mean, you can't script that any better. I mean, and what's funny is right around the corner on that bridge, there was another boat who got to watch us catch them. There was a boat behind us that got to watch us catch them. And then it was just like, holy cow, like, we pulled into a random pocket. We had never fished that before. And, with 15 minutes before check-in, that fish was the difference maker from first to second place. And it was just like the craziest experience ever catching that largemouth. Like, even though it was our smallest fish, it meant the most, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I've talked to a decent amount of tournament winners and big tournament winners now, and I don't think there's no story that tops this one. That's a absolutely incredible tournament win story, and just like, gosh, you guys are never going to forget that. Like, that's so cool. That's awesome. Well,
I won't ever go on a weigh-in early without fishing by the ramp. I'll tell you that.
Right. If you learned one thing,
yeah,
that's what it is. But that's incredible. Well, congratulations on the win. I mean, you guys definitely earned it. I mean, that was not something like you ran up there like, oh, I mean, people already complain about having to run 30 to 50 miles to go catch a smallmouth, much less in 6-7 footers, and then have to make the run all the way back with the stress of only 4 fish in the box. I mean, that's insane. That's super cool. But yeah, like I said, congratulations again. So like, I mean, that's got to be your most memorable tournament, and probably will be for a long time, right?
By far.
Yeah.
By far.
I would say so. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's nothing that, I mean, it's all like stages. Like where we're at now, that win means like, a couple years ago, I qualified for MLF Natty at Lake Erie, and kind of had like a similar experience where, I stopped at the last second, caught a 4-pounder, called up, qualified, and like at that moment was like, holy cow, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And that's nothing. Like I could care less about that moment now. This is like the new moment, So yeah, there's nothing that tops this right now, and yeah, it's just, that's awesome. But we still have a natty to go fish, so you never know. But
yeah, I think that would do it if you guys won the natty.
Yeah.
I think that would that one might have to take the cake.
I think that would do it too. Yeah.
Or qualify for the bracket. Yeah, that'd be super cool. Yeah, kind of switching gears a little bit now. I'm, like I've said a bunch of times now, it's an incredible tournament story, and to come out on top's awesome. But how'd you guys both get into fishing? Like, did your parents fish? Have you guys tournament fished forever? Just kind of talk to me about how it started and how you got from that point to now winning Saginaw Bay in 6 and 7 footers.
You can start, Jack.
Yeah, I can start off here. So, my parents, my dad doesn't fish. Nobody in my kind of immediate family is really into it. My uncle's actually who got me into it. Uncle Kirk, shout out. He's taught me everything I know and more. But he got me into it from a pretty young age, kind of taking me to the youth events and mostly just fishing out of the back of the boat with him. Just kind of a bonding experience, fishing local weeknighters. So I kind of been doing that for quite a bit of time, and never really got into it on a bigger tournament scale. The biggest tournament we fished was 30 boats, because that was the classic for our weeknighter series that we were doing. Never did a lot of competitive stuff in high school. I was part of the club, the fishing club. I had an interest in it, but I didn't have a boat, and I didn't fish any high school events at all. I was just part of the club, just enough to know a couple people, and kind of have people to go hang out with and attend the meetings and stuff. And then when college came along, my uncle, who taught me everything and got me into it, happened to know the former, and I'm talking years ago, former president of the Western Club. So when I decided to go to Western, he reached out to that guy, and that guy got me in contact with who at the time was the current president, and that current president came and picked me up at the dorms and drove me to the first meeting, and it was pretty much lights out from there. I probably was on the team for a couple months before I sold my sedan and used the 12 grand I got and used 6 of it to get a truck and 5 of it to get my first boat. And that was like my starter rig. And then I never looked back from there, because it was like I started once I got the bug and started fishing the bigger, and by bigger I mean like 30 to 40 to 50 boat or in-state college stuff and the tournaments around here, and started getting in that mindset of being my own boater and running the own boat. kind of was one of the big changes for me, where it kind of got the competitive fire lit, and I just have gotten more and more involved with it and doing bigger and bigger stuff through college since then.
Yeah, so I guess my story is kind of similar. Obviously, being from this area, I fished around here a bunch. But growing up, same thing. My grandpa got me into fishing. I would fish them all the time on the local lakes. We never did any tournament fishing. That was something that came along later. He passed when I was fairly young, and they gave me his boat. He had like a 1980s smoker craft, with like a 30 horse. That sucker ran on like 3 cylinders. It did 8 miles an hour, but I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And so I was always out fishing whenever I could be. And as soon as I turned 16, I bought my first bass boat. It was a Nitro NX 882. And I went to a local club. It was actually the club that Kevin Van Dam started in when he was 16. And I went to their meeting, and, the director pulled me aside, and he's like, "Hey man, listen, you're not 18, you can't run a boat." But he's like, "You seem like a good kid. I'll let you fish." Awesome. So I fished in that club for the first 3 years, and I learned more from those guys, and fishing the smaller stuff than like I would have ever imagined. And, that kind of was like what jump started us. And then obviously same thing, like jumping into college. Like I knew when I was in high school, I wanted to fish in college. My freshman to senior year, I went to every one of the Adrian college bass camps. So Coach Borton, he helped me out a bunch, and I was always at those camps, and I learned more from those guys too. And I was, my whole dream was to fish for Adrian. Even at my high school decision day, I picked Adrian because that's really where I thought I was going to go. And it ended up not really financially working out for me and my family, and I decided to go to a local community college first. Through the community college, I still fished local stuff, like, bigger local trails, like you said, 20, 30 boat trails. And then I met one of the guys at Western at a DNR show or something, and I was like, "Hey, I really want to fish for you guys." Like, "Oh, you can fish for us your incoming summer." So I transferred early. And then same thing, I went to my first meeting, and I walked in, and every guy was like, just like me. And I was like, this is going to be the greatest 3 years of my life. So I only fished on the team for 3 years. But it was awesome. And to be able to learn so much from those guys, like from where we all started to where we are now, everyone's story is so much different, but we all share that same passion. It's like, this is literally the greatest sport there is, really.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then go from, Western Michigan's not one of those schools that's necessarily like nationally known for fishing, like I already mentioned before, like the Montevellos and all those other schools, but to have
no, not at all.
Yeah, and then to have you guys win and like to have the success you guys have had, and like I said, I've seen you guys all over the place winning those CBTs. Because I've looked into coming up and fishing some of them. I've never actually gotten to fish
sweet.
one of them.
You should come up. We have one on Lake St. Clair in a couple of weeks. We'd like to see you there.
When is that?
Maybe I shouldn't tell him. Actually, he's gonna go catch him. It's July 20th.
No.
Yeah,
the 20th.
It's a Saturday.
Might have to think about that because I was supposed to fish some of the BFLs, and I didn't make it up there for the 29th one because I ended up having something going on. But then I was supposed to fish the one on the 13th, but I was sitting there. I'm like, well, that's literally during the Bassmaster Open. I'm not doing that. I'm not paying the money to go up there to fish during the Open, but maybe the CBT, that's not a bad idea.
It'd be cool.
Yeah. Thanks for telling me about that.
Yep.
Keep your feet in the water.
Yeah. No, me and my buddy down here, like that is like our, if not our all-time favorite lake, like top 3. Just I absolutely love that place. Like it is a blast.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's gonna show out for the Open this week. I'll tell you, we have a couple Western guys that are fishing it, and yeah, one of our old presidents, Bo Thomas, he finished 5th at Eufaula. Yeah, he was the president of Western like when I came in, so he's the one that kind of took, and he was president when Jack. Well, after a year, Jack was on the team, but he's been doing pretty good in the Opens, and he's fishing it this week, so we'll see how that goes.
And our former president after Bo, Cole, is also fishing the Open, and those guys are both St. Clair hammers, so it's cool getting them to kind of getting to see them fish on their home water a little bit.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I know the guys that came second at Saginaw, Aaron Jagfeld. I know he's fishing it.
Yeah, that kid is a hammer, bro. He is so good.
He really is. And they ended up winning team of the year, which is super cool. So that's good for them. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see all those guys fish on St. Clair, and that place is awesome. I know people have said like, oh, it's fishing worse than this year. It's gotten so much more pressure. I'm like, maybe it's true, but at that place still just I absolutely love it. It's so different than so many other smallmouth fisheries, and like there's nothing like it. I mean, you can go to Lake Erie that's an hour away from it, and it's just a completely different fishery.
Yep.
But that's super cool. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. But before we hop off here, I just want to give you guys both a chance to shout out any sponsors or any social media where people can follow you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of our bigger sponsors, DNR Sports Center, the old Dick and Randy's, they're a huge supporter of us. Sign Impressions, Advantage Roofing, those are our title sponsors. They really power us through the season. And then some of our other sponsors like Beast Coast. I would say Beast Coast is one of the best bait companies there is right now out there. They make some really quality stuff, and we wouldn't be here without them. And then I mean our socials. I don't think we really have like a big social media following, but definitely go follow the team at West Michigan Bass. Yeah, follow West Michigan Bass. Hopefully we did enough to where the team grows a little bit more from this, and we have a better national outlook on things, and that's really the end goal for all of us.
My Instagram's Jack G Simpson. Throw yours out there.
Mine's Burrell13.
There you go. See, maybe a couple guys to go follow you.
I
always like to, because then, I mean, even if you guys don't have huge social media followings, I know there are people that will want to after this. And, I know it doesn't seem like, I know for you guys, you love to win. It doesn't seem like people care. But like you said at the beginning, Jack, like there's so many people that see this stuff. And, I mean, even like I didn't really start fishing until my sophomore, junior year of high school. And I mean, just looking at some of the college guys, I'm like, wow, those kids are like studs. And then you go fish college, and you're like, I mean, they're still studs. You're like, I'm fishing against these guys now. Like, it's weird. And
yeah,
like,
I mentioned that on the weigh-in stage. I was like, Easton Fothergill, dude. Like, I look up to that guy. I mean, that guy is cracked out of his mind. He just won the Open. Like, he's one of the best anglers in the country. It's like, it feels good to be up there with him, and then it feels even better to beat him. Not in a mean way or in a bad way. Like, he's still a million times better than me, but to be able to compete against him is awesome. And it's like he's the future of the sport. And, I get to compete on the same stage, like they say, the big bass, big stage, big dreams. And he's really like the headline of it. He's shown that, you can win the college bracket, you can win an Open, you can do good at the Classic, and we fish against him. We're in the same league as him. Like, how cool is that? That's the coolest thing in the world to me,
Yeah. And I totally know what you mean about like not saying beating him in a bad way, but like, it's almost like a little bit of self-validation. Like, when you first start fishing it, you're like, oh my gosh, these guys, like you said, Easton Fothergill, when Tucker fished, I mean, all those guys, Aaron Jack felt absolutely, him and his partner blew it out of the water this year. Like, there's been so many good guys that have came through the college series, and you're like, it almost feels like you don't belong at first, because like, how am I supposed to do it? And then you get that first, like, I know you guys didn't fish a whole ton of them, but you get that win or your first good finish, and you're like, not that you want to beat them, like you said, in a mean way, but just a little bit of self-validation, like, hey, I belong here. Like,
there's like admiration
on the same side, right?
Yeah, it was cool. I commented on his post, and he was like, good win, man. I was like, that's the coolest thing that's happened to me all week. So, I mean,
you're like, that made my week.
Yeah, it made my week. I mean, he acknowledged me. That's awesome, because he's right. Where we are is nothing, right? But it still feels good, having, like he said, the recognition, or like, oh wow, those kids are pretty good. They did good here, and that's super cool. And it's like, oh well, Western's got to be a good team. Like you said, you pay attention to CBTs and all of that, and it's like this kind of jumpstarts us in the right direction, because even though we're a somewhat, I wouldn't say a new team, but we're a very like low light team. It's like, who knows where we'll be in 5 years, or where the sport will be in 5 years, and this could just be the start of something new. I'm not sure. Yeah,
and you guys have some added a win on the national level, and I mean, you guys clearly are doing something right if you pumped out something. I mean, like you said, Bo Thomas. I mean, he's an incredible fisherman, fishing in the Opens and doing well. Like, you guys are clearly doing something as a team and building some sort of right program where he's able to do that as a graduated, like he's an alumni now, and you guys getting a win on the national level. So that's super cool, and I'm excited to see where you guys continue to grow past the CBT and just more into that national level, both on the MLF and Bass side. So that's something that'll be cool to watch in the years to come.
Yeah. And thanks for having us on, man, for all the congratulations and everything. You've been nothing but great, and we appreciate you putting us out there on the podcast and all that as well.
Yeah, no, it's been an absolutely incredible story, and hopefully we can get to talk to you guys again because you get to get another win.
We'll see you on St. Clair in a couple weeks.